Sonic Frontiers is a game. That's it. That's the whole video. Roll the end card. Okay. On a more serious note, I did do the unthinkable task of 100%ing this game. And I have regrets. Several regrets. Also, spoilers for pretty much the entire game up ahead. Okay, moving on. The game begins with disaster, as most Sonic games do. We enter the first cyberspace level, reach the main island, go through the tutorial segments, and now we can pretty much do anything we want. But I don't want to just run around willy-nilly. I want one thing and one thing alone. Hype. And the best way to get that hype is to speedrun 4 of the cyberspace levels, to get vault keys, to get the Chaos Emeralds, to then progress through the story to get the rest of the Chaos Emeralds, to then go and fight the boss. And I get to listen to some of the best boss music that's ever been made. We beat the first boss, move on to the second island, and okay, I guess we're back to square one. No emeralds, another friend to save, and more levels to complete. Cool, I guess. So once again, we rinse and repeat. Beats 4 cyberspace levels to then get vault keys, to then get the Chaos Emeralds, to then go through the story and get more of the Chaos Emeralds, to then fight the boss and get even more hype. We beat the second boss, move on to the third island, and yep, you guessed it, back to square one. No emeralds, another friend to save, and more levels to complete. Now I'm starting to see why I stopped here my first time through. But here we go again. Beat 4 cyberspace levels, get vault keys, get Chaos Emeralds, go through story to get rest of Chaos Emeralds, and get to the boss with an overwhelming amount of hype. So we beat the third boss, and now we get a change of pace. But it's not exactly a welcome one, though. We now have to ascend and shut down 6 towers scattered across the 4th island, but it also turns out that 4th island is actually just the second half of the 1st island, but it won't let us go back to the 1st island for whatever reason. Okay, so we get those towers shut down, but Sonic gets corrupted by a virus and also shuts down. Oh no! If only he was sponsored by NordVPN! I'm kidding. Nobody's sponsoring this video. I doubt anybody's crazy enough to sponsor this lunatic. To uncorrupt Sonic, his friends essentially undo all of his hard work in freeing them so that he can go stop the big bad evil guy. Oh, and also that AI girl who's been following you around this whole time and being a general pain in the ass is now working with you. So that's cool, I guess. And we're kind of back to the same cycle again. Need 5 cyberspace levels to get vault keys, to get the Chaos Emeralds, to then progress through the story to get the last 2 Chaos Emeralds, and by the time you get the last Chaos Emerald, it's time to fight the final boss all of a sudden. And so you beat the final boss to the tune of the game's main theme, which is pretty good, but not nearly as hype as the previous 3 boss themes. And then you beat it!
Is that it?
Yeah, apparently that's all. The story concludes with a quick time event to finish off the fake moon, and then it's over. Story beaten, as underwhelming as it is. What's crazier is that you can actually fight the true final boss only if you play on hard mode. And as it turns out, that final boss is a Toho level. Okay, Sonic Team, what the hell? Okay, now that the main story is completed, it is now time for the tedious process of 100% completion. Fortunately, the map UI has little progress bars for each corresponding island element to show how much I've already done of everything. And as it turns out, the part that I had done the most already happened to be fishing. Yes, there is a fishing minigame. Yes, Big the Cat is there. Yes, it's ridiculously broken and super easy to get what you would normally have to run around each island to get. And yes, Big the Cat is there. Next up were the Island Guardians. These are essentially mini bosses that you have to fight that are scattered across the island, and they give you a gear to unlock cyberspace levels upon beating them. But even on normal difficulty, they still weren't super hard to beat. Next up was viewing every side story interaction with the friend you saved on the island, as well as with Sage. These require you to have a certain amount of memory tokens to even view them, but fortunately with most of them I'd already gathered enough memory tokens, so it just boiled down to watching a crap ton of cutscenes. Next on the chopping block, the remaining cyberspace levels. Each of these levels grants you a vault key for every level completion, every S-rank time achieved, every required ring count met, and every red ring collected. And save for a couple of levels, most of these cyberspace levels just required a few runs to go through and collect everything. No biggie. The next thing I wish to tackle were the new Cocos. These were added in the second major update, and these were a mixed bag. Some of them were fairly easy to get, others were a bit of a pain in the ass, but still doable. However, one of them is such a pain in the ass to get as it makes use of the worst mechanic in the game, aka wall climbing, and requires you to basically time your climbs, except it takes an entire second for Sonic to move after pressing the trigger to move, and if you fall, you have to basically redo the entire thing all over again. It's just Please apologize for the raise you just saw in the previous scene. After consuming some therapeutic Cheez-Its, that version of me calmed down and eventually beat it. So that's done. Next up we have the Action Chain Challenges. These were added in the second major update, and initially I thought they were going to be really difficult, as whenever they would start, I would grab the yellow spheres, but I would only get a C or D rank. But as it turns out, you're supposed to grab the yellow spheres and go absolutely nuts doing whatever. Killing enemies, boosting, hitting springs, grinding rails, pretty much anything can get you an S rank. And once I figured that out, it was super easy to get an S rank on all of the challenges. And now the final most tedious obstacle remains. The memory tokens. If you don't know what that's like, imagine the Koroks from Breath of the Wild, but instead they're surprisingly easy to get and they're also pretty visible on the overworld. Wait, where was I going with this comparison? But there is still a ridiculous amount of them on every island, except for the fourth island, that gets a pass for some reason. And after long and tedious hours of grinding and springing and boosting and jumping, I finally got every memory token, and I finally fully completed Sonic Frontiers. Or should I say I just completed the main story? Because as it turns out, the third and final major update for Sonic Frontiers added another story, which essentially rewrites the story of the final island to include Sonic's friends Amy, Knuckles, and Tails, and gives them their own playable movesets. There's also new challenges, new unlockables, new cyberspace levels, and a new final boss. But if I could sum this update up in one sentence, it would be this. Sonic Team, who hurt you? Who genuinely hurt you? We start playing as Amy as we do a few things before going to find a Chaos Emerald. Once we do that, we switch to Knuckles, do a few things, and also find a Chaos Emerald. Then we switch to Tails, do a few things, and also find a Chaos Emerald. Then we finally get to switch to Sonic. And now we get to ascend 4 towers again, god damn it. But unlike the towers on the 4th island, these towers are much more painful to ascend. And then once we reach the top, we have to go through a challenge, but honestly, these challenges are nothing compared to the challenge of having to ascend every damn tower. But okay, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh here. We beat the 4 challenges, and now we go back to Amy. So we do a few more things with Amy and find another Chaos Emerald, then we do the same thing with Knuckles, then we do the same thing with Tails. And then we go back to Sonic, where we have to ascend one final tower and complete one final challenge. And honestly, this challenge is almost great. Let me explain. For this final challenge, you have to beat all 3 Titan bosses in a row with level 1 stats. And since going supersonic drains your rings slowly over time, you have until your rings run out to beat all 3 of them in a row. The first boss is straightforward and gets right to the fight. The third boss is also straightforward and gets right to the fight. But I went from liking the second boss to absolutely detesting it because of this challenge. You don't realize how long that boss takes until you're on a strict time limit. And considering there's a lot of waiting to make your move in this fight, and if you miss any parries, you have to wait even longer, Yeah, you can see why this boss sucks in this challenge. But several attempts later, we finally beat the last challenge, and now it's time to face the final boss. The fight begins the same way it does in the base game. However, it's a lot easier to beat the first two phases because the game really wants you to get to the real meat of this fight, the true final boss. But honestly, I'm not sure what to think about this boss. On one hand, it's a lot better than playing a Touhou game and actually test your skill to a degree, but on the other hand, it's fairly confusing in several aspects. First thing you have to do is detach the umbilical cord to keep it from regenerating its health, but to lock onto said umbilical cord you have to sidestep. It's hard to do it without that. Once it's detached and you whittle down its health, then the umbilical cord comes back and reattaches. Huh? And this keeps happening until you go to its back and side-loop a specific point to release its gun, even though the game doesn't hint at all that you're supposed to do that. I legit had to look up a guide just to figure out what the hell I was doing wrong. Once the gun is detached, you keep attacking it to drain its health. Also, mind you, before this fight, you could hold the parry input and it would automatically parry. But with this, you have to perfectly time your parries with whatever attack he throws out at you, or else you kind of get absolutely thrashed. But once you whittle down its health again, you send it flying up in the air, and you get to see a really cool cinematic to the tune of the game's main theme, but completely redone. And despite, rocketing through the center of a fake moon, Sonic survives to tell the tale, because I mean, like, they kind of have to have him survive in the end. But what I like about this ending is that Sage actually survives, and Eggman gets a happy ending, because damn it, that man needed one. And with the final boss defeated, it's now time to tackle the rest of the map for true 100% completion. The first step is unlocking the entire map, which requires all 4 characters to do. Sonic must complete more challenges, while Amy, Knuckles, and Tails must find several map Coco scattered across the island. However, most of these happen to be up in the sky, so an easy way to get to them is to go to the top of the tall tower I have easy access to, and just fly or levitate down to the map Coco. I doubt this is what the developers intended, but screw it, I want this game done. Every character has a certain amount of special interactions with other characters scattered across the island, and Amy, Knuckles, and Tails also have special Coco they must find and locate to give them skill points to help max out their skill trees. Once these were completed, and once every character's stats were maxed, the final obstacle remained: the cyberspace levels. And this is where I began to regret wanting to 100% this game. The rules are completely different with these levels. Not only that there's several different collectibles in these levels, there's also new goals, no checkpoints, and these levels are genuinely much harder than your average cyberspace level. These levels genuinely broke my sanity. I must have tried some of them at least 50 times before I finally got them, and then I had to redo them all because I wanted to get the S rank time. Honestly, these levels introduced some really cool concepts that, unfortunately, I believe they just were not tested. For instance, the rocket boost creates an effect that covers pretty much most of the entire screen, which really makes it hard to see when you're trying to collect 5 special coins and you only get 1 chance to do it, which essentially led to the 50+ attempts on this one level. But after a lot of sweat and tears, no blood thankfully, if I could commit murder on this level, I would. But after a lot of sweat and tears, I finally beat the final cyberspace level. Every challenge completed, every S rank achieved. And with that, I can proudly and defiantly say, I 100%ed Sonic Frontiers. Every achievement obtained, every unlockable grab, every character maxed out, and every boss beat. And what did we learn from this? Don't do what I did. Please, if you want to retain your sanity, please don't 100% Sonic Frontiers. So that was fun. Don't get me wrong, despite the tediousness and the levels that made me suffer emotionally, this game was pretty good. Obviously not the greatest game ever made, but it was enjoyable enough. At least enjoyable to compel me to 100% it, and that's all that matters. But to end off this video, I kinda gotta do something with all this extra gameplay footage, so how about a really cool montage to the tune of the definitively best song in this entire game.
Now here we go, it's the end of them, they're calling.